This is episode 18 with special guest, Shauna Ekadal. Welcome to My Kid Cures Cancer. My name is Ryan Sternagel, former regular guy turned dadcologist, cancer coach, and health advocate. Each week we'll talk to a new expert on a particular aspect of beating cancer or human optimization to bring you one step closer on your path to true health. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Now let's dive into this valuable, life-saving information which you're not going to hear about in a mainstream hospital. Alright friends, as I told Shauna today in our interview, this couldn't have come at a better time, as after exploring all sides of nutritional strategies for cancer and healing and which nutrients to be getting in and all of that, I was certainly ready for a little break in favor of something lighter and deeper at the same time, and that is exactly what we got in the conversation you are about to hear. Frequency alchemist and author Shauna Ekadal is a trailblazer in the area of mind, body, and spirit wellness. She has transformed the lives of women around the world, including public figures, by helping them to heal their bodies, affect positive change in their businesses, and have great impact and influence in the world. Shauna is the host of Be Well Live and Soul Frequency, shows dedicated to empowering people to live authentically. Her guests include New York Times bestselling authors, celebrities, and holistically minded visionaries. Shauna holds a Bachelor of Science in Interpersonal Communication, and her formal training includes nutritional science, psychology, and energetic healing. She has been published in the Journal of Nonverbal Communication and is a featured contributor for Awareness magazine. She was awarded the James I. Brown Award from the Institute for Intrapersonal Processes. Her first book is already receiving rave reviews and will be available to the public in 2018. And like I said, I feel like this was a really good conversation and the type of episode we need to have more of around here, given the fact that we're looking to bring in all aspects of healing on this show, from Western medicine to energy medicine and everything in between. If you like this episode, I suggest you go back to listen to episode 14 with Razzie Berry and episode 4 with Dr. Darrell Wolfe, as I feel those conversations tie very nicely into this one. Shauna and I got into her own cancer scare with skin cancer on her nose and how that caused her to take a step back and a hard look at her life, and would eventually lead to the work she does today. She defined and gave examples of exactly what it is we're talking about when we speak in terms of frequency as it relates to our lives and the world around us, and most importantly to this show, our health and healing. We talked about how emotions, thoughts, and long-held belief systems can be a permanent damper on our frequencies and therefore health, and Shauna tells us how she believes that focusing on these concepts has the greatest potential impact for our health, yet more often than not is the least paid attention to, and the more I think about it, the more I would tend to agree with her. Always love it when a guest is able to tie the subject back to children, which is of course closest to my heart, and I know many of yours as well. And Shauna had a lot to say about how all of this can relate to children and what we can do to keep them energetically healthy. She got into a few exercises we can do to start unpacking a lot of those negative perceptions we may not have even known were weighing us down, and changes we can make to the way we go about living our lives day to day and start vibrating at a higher level right now. And speaking of freeing ourselves from things that are weighing us down, it's a tough subject, but one that I think more people going through cancer have had to deal with than not, and that is how to let a person who is close to you go, who you have come to realize is no longer serving your health and higher purpose. It's a tough conversation, but I think it's one that's going to help many of you. That being said, I am so glad you stopped by My Kid Cures Cancer, where it is our goal to bring all sides of the discussion on how to heal cancer and be truly healthy to the same table, to give you one place to tune into for the most well-rounded perspective possible. This is a show for people going through cancer by people going through cancer, inspired by my wife Teddy and I's experience with childhood cancer, bringing our son Ryder from a stage 4 cancer diagnosis to the happy, healthy little boy he is today. If you aren't dealing with a cancer diagnosis and want to keep it that way, this show will likely be very helpful for you as well. We'll get to Shauna in a minute, but of course, I did want to remind you, in case you'd forgotten from last episode or in every episode before that the information you hear on this show is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Of course, we're very happy to let you know that if you do not already own an infrared sauna and are in the market for one, Sun Light and Saunas would like to offer you 150 big ones off of any one of their saunas just for being a listener to this show. All you have to do is mention My Kid Cures Cancer when you call them up, and that is all there is to it. Like I said this to someone in one of the childhood cancer groups I'm in the other day, and I thought it was worth repeating here. Our son Lighton has been through 2 house moves and countless spills inside of it and is still going strong. So when we talk about son Lighton, it's not just for their reputation. We talk about them for what we have put ours through, and it just manages to keep on going. Not to mention that our EMF meter does not move a tick when we're inside of it, and that is the most important thing. If you don't already have an infrared sauna, this is just 101 for healing cancer, in my opinion, or keeping it away for that matter if you're serious about it. It's so easy and effective for detoxification and immune modulation and a greater sense of well-being for that matter. It's virtually impossible to get out of one of those things and not be in a good mood. So again, give Son Lighton a call and mention My Kid Cures Cancer and get your $150 discount on any of their saunas. If you're watching this on YouTube, just want to let you know that we are on iTunes and Stitcher for your listening pleasure. And if you are listening to the podcast, do be sure to check out the My Kid Cures Cancer YouTube channel for the video versions of these interviews, along with videos of how we're able to work all of the advanced health strategies you hear about on this show into our lives, including applying them to our children. And however you're consuming these interviews, you can, of course, find our review article and links to any resources mentioned, along with our thoughts on how the information applies to childhood cancer, to this and all past episodes in the mothership at mykidcurescancer.com. Oh yes, and bonus points for any of you faithfully listening to every episode in order who remembers that at the end of last episode, we said we were going to be playing our interview with our good friend Robin Openshaw of GreenSmoothieGirl.com. Her book launch got pushed out a bit, and we want to do everything we can to get it onto the bestseller list when it does come out, so we decided to hold off on releasing that one. So accordingly, disregard any references you hear in this conversation to an interview that already happened with Robin. It did, but it didn't. But stay tuned for that one because it was quite good. With that, let's get to the interview with Shauna Ekdahl. All right, everyone. Welcome back to the My Kid Cures Cancer podcast. We have with us Shauna Ekdahl. Shauna, how are you? And thank you for coming on.
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I like I was just telling you before we started recording, had Robin on last week, and she had so much great stuff today to say that we only got to her actual key thing right now, the vibrations and the frequency and such with for the last 10 minutes of the show or so, and that was what I felt was like the best part. And so I'm really looking forward to picking up the conversation with you today. And I suppose, we already went over your bio and stuff, but if you want to just maybe jump into, like we were just talking, I think your background is kind of the perfect lead-in because you had a little cancer scare of your own, and that led to what you do today. So I suppose if you want to just, pick up wherever you want to pick up and talk about how that led to what you do, that might be a good place to start.
Okay, perfect. So we were talking about before we got on, we basically had a whole interview right before we pushed record, but we had a great conversation, but we'll fill you guys in. So basically I was diagnosed with cancer on the bridge of my nose. It's been almost 10 years ago. And for me, every time we receive a diagnosis or we have something that we might deem as negative or traumatic that happens to us, can be loss of a job or divorce or any type of diagnosis. To me, it's an opportunity. There's always opportunity in that. It's hard to get to that feeling like it's an opportunity, right? You certainly don't get that the day you get a diagnosis or have something happen to you. But looking back on it, it really was an opportunity in my life because I had never really been taught how to feed my body. I mean, we just learn by watching the people around us. I had never been taught about the value of sleep or taking, great self-care. I think we're just always emulating, the environment that we grow up in. And so I never even considered those things. I mean, I felt like I ate pretty healthy. I felt like I took care of myself. And so when I got that diagnosis, the first thing out of the doctor's mouth, I can literally see the doctor's face like this. You know how someone says something, it has this immediate impact for you and you never forget it? He said, "Gosh, you're so young to have this." And I was like, it really struck me. I was like, Wow. Okay. And then I remember going to my doctor's appointments, and there were people that were decades older in the waiting room of the doctor's office. And so it got me thinking, why did this happen? Why am I younger to have this type of cancer? And basically, having something on the bridge of your nose is not like having it on your ankle or your leg. And so it really was, I saw it as a wake-up call. I saw it as something that wanted my attention because it was literally on my face. I could see it every day. And when they did surgery, there was a lot of talk about how they were going to do the surgery. And since we don't have much skin on the bridge of our nose, they were considering, making an incision up my forehead to basically take a flap of skin and pull it down. And so this was, I was maybe going to have a scar that was the length of my nose all the way up to my forehead. So it doesn't get more apparent than that. And of course, a lot of tears, a lot of emotion about that, and a lot of why me, at the beginning. And then at a certain point, I just started looking into nutrition and health, and kind of opening the door to learning things that I kind of came to say, why aren't we taught this? I was frustrated at some point. I go, why isn't this readily available? And in fact, it's really funny. I've told this story before, that in my health class in high school, when I was like 15 years old, they sold candy bars. It was like the baseball coach, for the baseball team, who was selling candy bars on, to make money for the baseball team. So there just was never any great information on that. And that was really my doorway into doing the work that I do today.
That's pretty cool. So did you end up getting the surgery, or how did that play out?
Yeah, I did end up getting the surgery. Thankfully, I talked them into stretching my skin enough to close the incision on the bridge of my nose and not have to put the incision up on my forehead. So I was that was a huge win for me at that time. I was just thinking, oh gosh, this is great. And luckily, it's not super apparent, but it was a very impactful event in my life. And it made me, I think, when you go through life living relatively healthy, and then you have something like that happen, it really stops you in your tracks, and it really has you evaluate everything in life. And so it not only changed the way I was feeding myself, and I started detoxifying my body and doing all kinds of different alternative protocols to get healthier, it made me start looking at my emotional self, things I'd been through in my past. It really kind of went like a domino effect of really starting at the physical, then starting to look at the emotional things that had gone on in my life, and the thoughts that I think, my mindset and the way I process information. And then it certainly went into the spiritual side. What are my beliefs, and what do I connect to at these times that are tough?
So I guess, like I was telling you, as well before we started recording, we've certainly beaten a lot of the nutritional and alternative solutions. Maybe not to death, but it's definitely time for a little shift. So I mean, you mentioned the emotional transformation and the spiritual piece. I guess I'd love to just dive into unpack both of those a little bit with you. I mean, as far as the emotional stuff goes, what exactly were you working on? What did you identify that you needed to change? And how was what have you done to transform that side of it?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's to me, it's the area where you can have the greatest impact in healing. And yet we're very fixated on the physical, right? We're very fixated as a society on fixing the diet, fixing the physical. Oftentimes, we don't even realize what's going on under the surface until we get a physical diagnosis, or until something happens physically. And many times things are in our energetic system always before they end up in our physical body. So we have an energy field around our body, and we manifest things in our energy field. There's disturbances, right, in our energy field before we develop like a physical diagnosis, before it's in our cells and molecules. And so, a lot of in the functional realm, people talk about getting to the root cause. And I really believe the root cause is our energy system, right? Getting things before they are in our cells and molecules, before they manifest as a physical illness. And my work really looks at how our emotions play into this and how our thoughts play into this. And I talk a lot about frequency and energy, right? Because really everything, and I'm sure Robin talked about this, her work is amazing. Everything is energy, right? We're energy. And the reason that we look different is because your energy is different than my energy. We each have our own signature energy that we are, and we can shift that. And I like to use the example of like turning a dial on an old radio in a car. Every time you turn the dial, you turn to a new frequency and you get, maybe country music, and then you turn it again, and maybe you get rock and roll music, and you turn it again, you get talk radio. So there's basically, we can't see the energy frequencies, but we are hearing different sounds that are being transmitted through different frequencies. And so it's around us everywhere, right? And I like to bring it really down to earth, because sometimes when you start talking about energy, people go, I don't know what that means. I can't see it. It's not tangible for me. And so I always use an example, like if you and I were to go to a party together, and I'd bring my husband, you bring your wife, and we'd walk in, and we really didn't know anybody in the room, we would be attracted to certain people. Our eye would go to certain people, right? We wouldn't be able to take in 200 people and everything they're wearing and what they're doing. Our brain doesn't handle that. And so we would maybe see, a girl and guy standing over there and think, oh, they look pretty cool. And so we might go over and introduce ourselves. And if they're really nice, we might go, oh, great, like, let's talk to them longer. And then we might leave the party and say to each other, as two couples, oh, they had the best vibe. They were so cool. They had the best vibe. And really what we're saying is, I liked their energy, right? I was attracted to their energy in the room full of people I didn't know, and I liked their energy. And so we are sensing energy all the time. We just don't oftentimes put words to it, or we don't see that we're doing it. And yet it's ever present all the time. And I've found in my work that when we shift our energy, we can bring healing about. And so our emotions are energy, our thoughts are energy, and they're powerful. They are powerful creators of our life. And oftentimes, if you say, like, let's talk about emotional healing, people go, whatever, let's talk about the food,
Yeah.
Let's talk about the body, let's talk about the physical. It's like sometimes we discount that. And what's really cool is if we don't discount that and we actually take a look at that, people that go through that process of emotional healing look back and go, that was the most powerful thing that I could have possibly looked at, because there's oftentimes, to protect ourselves, we're not really present to those emotions that are there, or the hurts of our past, or things that we've been through. We kind of, to save ourselves, right, from feeling hurt or sad, or any of those low frequency emotions like fear and shame and guilt and sadness. And those are all kind of low frequency emotions, and we don't like to feel those. And so we kind of just put that off to the side, or we don't deal with that. And I've found that great healing happens in my practice when we can look at that stuff and start to move that energy out of the body.
Yeah, I always tell people, we're big on avoiding EMFs, electromagnetic fields, yes. And it's just because you can't see them doesn't mean they're not hurting you. But yeah. So hopefully this question makes sense. So you related the energetic imbalances to just the emotional badness in that you may have gone through in your life, or that you have developed for whatever reason. Would there be any other source of an energetic imbalance besides the emotional piece, or really, are they pretty much, are we talking about two sides of the same coin?
No, definitely. Our thoughts are our energy. So when we think, it's like we are literally creating our life by what we think and feel. Right. So we are creating our reality. And I always give this example too, that brings this down to earth, is that, let's say, like, I had a friend growing up, and he always thought that people were going to steal from him. Right. It was just like his thing. He was really protective over all of his stuff. He, he would lock every door. He just thought, oh, do you see that guy across the street? He's going to come and take my stuff. I don't know, this likely is tied to something he went through, in his life. But I didn't grow up that way. And so I'd always say to him, no one's going to come take your stuff. Like, why are you doing that? But he just felt insistent on it. And he literally got stuff stolen from him all the time. Like, it was unbelievable. Like, the amount of stuff he had stolen, which then reinforced his thought pattern, right? Because so literally he was putting this energy out of, people are going to take my stuff. Then he attracts people into his life that take his stuff. And then he goes, see, I'm right. They took my stuff, right? So this is how we send mental energy out, and what we send out, we're always getting back. And so when we really understand energy, you react differently, right, to people. You really are conscious of, what am I putting out to the universe, not just to the person I'm talking to or the person I might be frustrated with, but what am I emanating from my energy? Because that's likely going to return to me in some by someone else's hand or in some other way in life, right? And then when you understand that too, you start to understand that you make a difference in the universe, right? Because if every one of us can send out energy and we can create the same like kind energy coming back to us, then imagine an entire state of people sending out energy, right? In the form of thought. Imagine if you had an entire state, like I live in California, if you had all of California for an hour sit down and send positive intentions and thoughts out to the world or to someone for healing, right? When they do prayer circles or healing circles for people, that is true spiritually for sure, but it's true at the point of energy too, is that what we are sending out touches other people. And they've actually proven that, that you can from another room affect the energy pattern of somebody else by having a positive intention for their life. And so they don't have to be in the same room. You don't have to be touching them, that we can heal energetically just by intention. Like some energy healers don't even have to be on the phone. They don't have to be on Skype. They can literally just, shift somebody's energy by having that intention to do so.
Yeah, no, the energy healer concept and piece has always been something that, I've never not believed in it or in the validity of it, but it's just, my mind was so just wrapped up in the studies and, just what's the best biological compound for this situation, that sort of thing. But, I ended up meeting up with a gal who does that sort of work at a couple cancer conference that I went to, Best Answer for Cancer. It's a great conference for anyone that wants to learn about cancer stuff. But she ended up offering to work on my son for just because she felt compelled to, and just knew all sorts of stuff that there was really no way that she could have known, just crazy stuff. And so that's always been really, like, she knew that, like, she said, I'm picking up a trapped summer heat was her thing. And it was like from very early on in my son's, life, a trapped summer heat. Does that mean anything to you? And he was born in, like, we had this townhouse complex, or this, crappy townhouse that, in the summer it was just god awful trapped summer heat. You couldn't get away from. We spent all sorts of money on, like, the most expensive little in-home air conditioners that, so that was just, that was just one thing, but yeah, it was pretty nuts. So it's always really stuck with me. And speaking of children and just the energetic connection from person to person, I guess, do you have anything, I don't know, specific to say about the connection between a parent and a child? We have a lot of, childhood cancer parents that listen to this show, and I'm certainly not asking you to, dissect the reason for childhood cancer or anything like that. But I don't know. I was always really big on just instinctively kind of, keeping the vibrations high and being positive whenever I was in the room, and that sort of thing. So I don't know, any thoughts there might be helpful to somebody.
Yeah. Well, I have a 5-year-old, soon to be 5-year-old son, and I was blessed with a very sensitive and energy sensitive child who has taught me in my life. And he has actually woken me up to remembering things from my childhood and experiences that I had in my childhood. And I can say that children feel everything. So when a child is born, before they can speak, before they, really have the ability to, have any kind of independence, they are feeling their environment, right? And so you can tell them something's not happening that's happening. So you could say to a child, like, no, mommy and daddy are fine if you guys are actually fighting. And they're going to know that something doesn't add up, right? Because they can feel what's going on in the house. And so when we're not honest with them, right, there's a discord, because they're going, well, they're telling me this, but I feel this. And it's one of the ways that kids learn to dishonor their intuition, right? Because a lot of times our intuition is our own guidance system for our lifetime. And so often we are listening to other people's guidance systems about us, right? Other people are saying, you need to have this kind of job, you need to live this kind of life, you need to do this, you guys should do this, it's like, and sometimes our elders, sometimes our family members, sometimes friends, right? And so we get very disconnected from our own GPS system for our life, right? Like a child might be born into a family of scientists and they might be an artist, right? And the family of scientists wants the child to get a science degree or wants the child to be interested in science. And that's not what that child's GPS is saying. And so there's a discord, right? If they're saying you need to do science or you should love this, and the child's going, I just want to paint, right? Because that soul came into this body to be an artist, right? Not to love science. And so we have to be very mindful with children that we're really looking at who is this being, right? This isn't just your child. This is a soul that's got a purpose on this planet to live out. Right. And we want to, and these kids that are coming on the planet right now are so wise, right? Wise beyond their years. And when you look in their eyes, sometimes you feel like you're looking into their soul and they're looking into your soul. I mean, these are powerful kids that are being born now, and they are coming as our teachers to some degree. And so from my energy work and the work that I do and the intuition that I have and how I guide my clients, like I have very specific views on the children of this time, of this era, and they are coming to show us that we need to take care of our planet. They're coming to show us, right, that we need to wake up, that we need to start paying attention to things, right? We need to start understanding Mother Earth and living in accordance to nature. We've always lived in accordance to nature until very recently, right, in our history, because we knew we couldn't survive if we didn't live in accordance to nature. We understood, our ancient cultures understood, if you don't live in accordance to nature, you don't live, and so we've gotten really far away from that. And so these kids, some of the manifestation of illness is a lesson too. It's them saying, it's like, think about your life prior, to your son's diagnosis and your life now. It's like you found your purpose, right? And a beautiful, incredible mission through this experience. And so if we can see our children as our teachers, as much as we are imparting wisdom to them and teaching them, how to function on the planet, they are just as much teaching us. And if we can look at it as like everything that we're faced with, right? It's like, what am I supposed to learn from this? Right? Is there discord going on and my child sensitive to that? Is there, are we not really taking care of ourselves in this household? Are we, what is this opportunity that I'm supposed to wake up to, right? And rise up to? And certainly, it's different for everybody, but a lot of the people that I work with have had, various diagnoses and various things that have happened in their life. And again, it takes time, but you can look back and say, gosh, this was difficult, but there's also a gift in this, right? There's also like a lesson in this for me, in my own evolution. And I would love to say that we should not feel pain, right? All those low frequency emotions, I'd love to say that there's no point in them and that nobody should be feeling them. But the truth is there is absolutely a point in them. And so it's not that we shouldn't experience them. It's that we're meant to experience them and grow from them and transcend them, right? We're not meant to stay stuck. We're meant to evolve and we're meant to grow. And that oftentimes only happens when we really get like shook up a little bit, right? Because otherwise we stay very busy and we stay disconnected to some degree and we keep going about life. And so sometimes I say the universe will whisper, hey, you need to pay attention. But most people don't listen, right, to the whisper. And then they'll knock on your door. They'll say, hey, I'm talking to you. You know what I mean? You got to wake up a little bit. And again, we don't listen because we're busy, right? And so when we end up with a diagnosis or our child ends up with a diagnosis, it's kind of like the universe is kicking down your door saying, hello, you know what I mean? I'm here with a lesson. Like, let's take a look at this stuff. And so it's I oftentimes talk about finding the wisdom in what is the message, right? What is the message that this child is teaching us? It can be more compassion. It can be truth. It can be connection, right? Sometimes an illness brings people together in a way that those people haven't been together before, right? And so that child is really, that energy of that child is like, it's teaching them everyone love, right? How to connect and love. And so again, it's like when you look into your children's eyes, powerful, powerful little beings.
Yeah, that's funny. You're certainly not the first to refer to my son as some sort of messenger, and not just offhand. Even there've been some really goosebump type comments more and more lately, actually, and that's probably probably not an accident either. But it's funny. The episode that I just released this week was with Dr. Robert Morse. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he made basically the exact comment you made about the beings, the souls coming into existence, into this plane, I guess, now being of a higher level and more powerful and really, here for a purpose and that sort of thing. So that's interesting.
Well, and when you think about it, evolution, right? The best way for our planet to evolve is for old consciousness to pass on, right? And new consciousness to be born. So it's like an internal evolution that goes on over time. And it's been going on this way forever. If you think about 3 or 4 generations, right? 3 or 4 generations back in your family, they did things differently. And it evolves, right? With every generation, how we see life. I like to say we're born with the tools that we need for the time that we're going to be on the planet, right? So it's like, I remember during my lifetime, the VCR was invented. And my parents had no idea how to work it. And I just naturally walked right up and knew how to work it as a child, right? And so our children at younger ages understand electronics and things like that. It's almost like a natural intuition for them, right? And they're gonna see life differently than we see life, because we came equipped for the time that we'll be here, and they come equipped with a whole different consciousness for the time that they'll be on the planet. And things are moving really quickly, right? So on all fronts, whether it's technology, whether all fronts, time has sped up about how things are being developed.
Yeah, I suppose if nothing else, you certainly need a bigger bag of tricks to be alive in today and make it through. That's for sure.
True.
Did you know that if you use a printer at home or the office for that matter, it is more than likely off-gassing toxic chemicals while it is printing that you are breathing? The best solution is to get an old dot matrix style printer, but if you want to keep 21st century print quality, having your printer in a well-ventilated area and or getting up to stretch your legs will do just fine as well. I think we all know by now the concern with toxins is the total toxic load from all sources we get exposed to day in and day out, and just being aware of as many of these sources as we can and making little tweaks to our home and lifestyle can go a long ways towards making sure we don't cross that toxic threshold in a disease, or not having too many toxins weigh us down from healing a disease for that matter. Want a list of dozens of these things like this that you can change in your own home today? We made it for you because we want your families to be as healthy as they can be, and just knowing what to be on the lookout for is half the battle. You can download our entire Ultimate Healthy Home checklist at mykidcurescancer.com/healthy-home. All right, let's get back to Shauna. Could we circle? I mean, we touched on it already a little bit, but circling back to the attraction thing. I was telling you, might as well. I was telling you before we started recording, it's like, I've been on this terrible slump of deals closing for my day job as a sales guy. And then ever since the last month, I've just been really, really working, not necessarily for sales at all, just for, just because I've been talking to, people that talk about vibrations and stuff. So I've been really, really trying to work on what I put out there to the universe. And all of a sudden, all these deals closed that I didn't have any, it was work that I did like a year ago. And all of a sudden the phone just starts ringing with, these huge deals. So it's very interesting if nothing else. And maybe, tell me what you just told me before recording, but then, so just tying it back to someone going through cancer or a serious health challenge, why might, maybe just some examples of why they would be, well served to think about what kind of energy they're putting out there and, what they might attract and get back, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so basically what we were talking about is that, it seems like, is this a coincidence, right? That for you, that all of a sudden these deals are coming together and you've surrounded yourself with really high vibration people. And I was saying to you that, no, it's not a coincidence, right? And I call this the land of little miracles, where things just start lining up in your favor. And when I'm working with people, I take them through a process where it's like, so the way I experience people is that it's like we're carrying around on our back like 40 heavy wool blankets, right? And so obviously we're hunched over because that's heavy. And these are all the events that have happened in our life, all the heavy things that we haven't processed, and all the heavy energy that we're storing in our body. And when we start to release that energy, and we can do that through tears, we can do that through, anger, we can do that in a lot of different ways. We can do it through physical activity. There's a lot of different ways to release energy, and I teach people how to do that. It's like you're throwing these blankets off your back, right? And you can finally stand up again, and you finally feel the vibrant light that you are. It's like when you look at little kids, healthy little kids, they're like a little ball of energy. That's what we call them, right? A little ball of light or a little ball of energy, because they don't have all those blankets yet. They haven't lived enough life and gone through enough stuff. And so when we open up our energy like that, we're literally a beacon of light, right? And people are attracted to that. When someone is really bright and, and they've got bright eyes and a great smile and like your energy, right? It's people will be drawn to that. People will want to resonate with you. They will want to be on your vibe, right? Because it feels good. It feels happy. It feels uplifting. And so when we do that, things start to manifest relatively quickly for people. So this idea that healing has to take forever, right, is not really the case when you're working at an energetic level. People can have spontaneous healings at an energetic level. And so when I'm working with somebody, I'm seeing the energetic ties between events that have happened in their life, in their past, and current day, and how that connects. So let me give you an example. Like, let's say a kid on the playground when you were in second grade said something really mean to you, and for whatever reason, that stuck, right? You believed what that kid said about you. Maybe that kid said, "Oh, you're the fat kid," or something, right? And you internalized that, and you said, "Oh my gosh, I am. That's who I am," right? And so we never know what's gonna be the thing that kids internalize, right? Another kid could say something, and it's nothing to that person, right? They never even internalized it. But there are events that we internalize, and then we create belief systems from them, and we live out of those belief systems. And so if my belief system is I'm unwell, if my belief system is I'm overweight, right? It doesn't matter how I try to get well, how many diets I go on, I'm never going to override my belief system, right? I'm never going, until I go back and I disconnect that, because it's not true, right? It wasn't true in second grade with that kid. It's not who you are as a person. But until that energetic tie is disconnected, you're going to subconsciously return to that old belief system all the time, right? So let's say take a show like The Biggest Loser, right? Where people lose all this weight, and then, 6 months or a year later, they might gain it back, right? Because they didn't change their mind. They didn't change their belief system. They didn't heal from all the hurt that they'd had from struggling with their weight, right? And so this is how we really go back and heal these things. And so if we have a diagnosable illness, right, that we're struggling with, and I'm talking to somebody, I'm looking at all the things, all the energetic ties to the manifestation of illness, right? So not to discount nutrition, that's super important, lifestyle, like being careful of EMFs, it's all of it, right? This is truly holistic, right? It's looking at all areas of the human being, right? So there can be stuff in the spiritual space, there can be stuff in your energetic field, there can be events that have happened in your life where it was so upsetting to you and you've never really healed from that or gotten over that. And we look at all of those, right? Because that is who you are. You're all of those things. And so we have this funny thing in our society where we want to break up people into pieces, right? Like you go to a knee doctor to look at your knee, and you go to, you go to a psychologist to talk about, things going on in your life. And so we're breaking up something that's a holistic system, right? Because someone could have pain in their knee because of an emotional reason. So if I'm only looking at the physical aspect of the pain in the knee, and I'm not looking at the real trigger, which is some emotional event they've been through that made them feel like they got cut off at the knees, then we're only going to have healing for a short period of time before that knee pain comes back. And so I'm a big proponent of, let's look at all of us and see how all the different parts of us are working together or not working together, and the exchange that's happening, because that's really what we are. Any one person is so vast and extraordinary, it almost blows your mind. And when I see them, right, and see their life journey, I'm so moved by it. I'm so in awe of it because there's so many components to any one person. I mean, we are like literally universes, right, inside of a body with so much light and so much energy. And it's like to watch people take off the heavy stuff, right, and move beyond it and really start to shine their light bright. That's how healing happens. And it's a beautiful thing to see.
So I know, this is what you work with people on, over probably, lots of hours of phone conversation or whatever. But I don't know. Is there a basic framework that you kind of take people through that you might be able to, dive into a little bit and maybe, I don't know, anything that anyone can kind of take away from this conversation and start to work on themselves like right now and see some results, that sort of thing?
Sure. It's a little challenging with energy work, with the work I do, only because I see things that you're not going to see about yourself, right? So we have these areas of our life that are unconscious, right, about, and I call what I do bringing it from the back up to the front, right? Because there's things we just don't see about ourselves, and we need help seeing those. And those things are kind of running the show from the background, right? It's like the little Oz behind the curtain. And because we can't see it, we can't really do anything about it, right? If it's unconscious for us and it's running the show from the background, like belief systems or things like that maybe you're not conscious of, it's always at play. But like, how do we see what we can't see, right? So that's where my work kind of comes in. But one thing that people can do by themselves to start to look at their life is go back to the beginning of your life. And in 10-year increments, I mean, I know nobody remembers age 0, but from like 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, and onwards at 30 to 40, and see if you can remember the things that hurt you the most or the things that made you the happiest. Because what this does is it starts to jog our memory, because oftentimes we just, as adults, we'll get busy and we're doing life and we forget about our childhood. I can't tell you how many times I have clients go, I don't even remember being 10, or I don't remember being 5, or I don't know what happened. We just don't think about it. We're just disconnected from our past a lot of times, and sometimes because there were hurtful things that happened. And so when we just start to jog our memory and go back and kind of see what are the signposts of my life, like what are the things that just off the cuff you remember, the 5 biggest hurts, from those 10 years, the 5 happiest moments, you will start to open up your own, Pandora's box kind of your life, of everything that maybe you haven't thought about in years. And what happens with that is people start to kind of connect the dots a little bit themselves, right, on some things. So you can start going, gosh, I see that one of the biggest things that people see from that exercise is they'll start seeing that they had people in each decade of their life that said similar things to them or reinforced certain belief systems, right? So they'll say, gosh, there's patterns that show up. I see that there's patterns in my life, right? Ways I've thought about myself or other things that people have said to me. And so just in that alone, we start to go, oh, like I see I've been thinking a certain way, putting that energy out, and I see that there's people that keep showing up, reflecting that back to me. Right. And so that is helpful, right? Because then we start saying, well, why don't we think a little bit differently? Right. So it's hard when you have a diagnosis to not think every day, oh my gosh, I have cancer. Oh my gosh, I have cancer. Oh my gosh, am I going to get sick? Oh my gosh, is this going to be the end of my life? Oh my gosh, can I heal? It's like constant, right? It's hard to not think about that when you're going through that. I know I was there, right? And truly, if we can say to ourselves, this is an opportunity, I'm going to beat this, right? Like we just keep saying to ourselves, like even when we go to those scary places or those dark places, like I've got this, I'm going to beat this. I'm waking up to this, right? This is an opportunity for me to understand my body better, right? To heal my life, to then go on and maybe help other people, right? Because that's a natural inspiration. When we heal, we want others to heal too. We want to pass along the gift. And so if we can see it from that high vibration vantage point, right? And we just start, and that's our internal talk. We open our energy up to receiving the people, the experience, even the money that we need to come in and fulfill what we're putting out, right? I see myself healing. I know I'm going to heal. I'm an open channel for healing. Everywhere I go, people want to help me heal. Everywhere I go, I get new information to help me heal. These are the thoughts we want to think every day. repetitively, you know, so you can do affirmations, you can write it, you know, in a gratitude journal, what you're grateful for every day and what you are creating every day. I'm creating health, I'm creating healing, you know what I mean? I'm creating people to help me with these things. And that's going to be way more beneficial to your healing than thinking about the diagnosis.
And just as far as the whole self-talk thing and you know everything you just said there, are there any I don't know additional resources that you would point people to just you know be reinforcing that and reaffirming that all the time? I don't know if you, like any sort of thing to listen to or to books to read or you know listening to your podcast, I'm sure, but I don't know, just anything else like that might behoove people to check out.
Yeah, I mean, certainly my podcast it's called the Soul Frequency Show. So it's all about raising your frequency, and all of the messages relate back to frequency and how we can live at these higher frequencies, which are things like love and compassion and enlightenment and joy, right? And so when we say those words, we even feel better, right? Than when we say fear, shame, guilt. It's kind of like, you know, and when we say love, joy, compassion, you know, empowerment, those are great feelings. I mean, I could repeat that to you like 20 times in a row and you'd start going, your physicality would go, yeah, and want to take that in. And so the more we fill our mind with those things and open up our hearts, the better off we are. And so the show is a great place to do that. Also, guided visualizations or guided meditations are great for people. So if we're feeling not in a positive place, and I have one that I am happy to provide for your listeners if I can provide a link to that. It's basically taking like 20 minutes of your time to just kind of relax, right? Because stress is not great for any type of disease state, and completely get out of your mind, right? And be guided in how to relax your entire body. And I guide people in how to allow high frequency energy into their system and how to basically, you know, visualize anything that is low frequency leaving your body. And so a daily practice of that, or even 2 times a day, you know, anytime you're feeling negative, right? It's a great thing to kind of reset yourself, right? And get on a better path. And certainly, you know, being in a relaxed state is great for the healing of the body.
Excuse me, please do provide that link.
Yes, I will.
Neat. Okay, so we'll throw that in the show notes, I suppose. Yeah, I might have to check it out myself. I got to figure something out. I just recently, I guess you could call it, gave up meditation, not because I don't believe in it or I wasn't getting anything out of it, but just with everything I'm doing, you know, trying to run this website and the podcast and all this, and still balancing the day job and you know, doing everything for my son. I've taken up to getting up really, 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 really early to you know, having my little morning routine, and that's the only time that it really makes sense to, you know, to do that for me anyway, is having my morning routine. But a lot of times I'm not getting to bed until midnight, and then I'm waking up at 4, and then I'm trying to meditate, and it's like, oh, I'm just going back to sleep. So I got to figure something out there.
And it's, you know, it's really, I mean, some people feel like intimidated by meditation as it is, like not even just that you don't have time, but some people feel like, well, I don't know, my mind continues to race, or, you know what I mean? I don't know how to do it right. And so these guided meditations or visualizations help your mind calm down, because I'm actually walking you through the relaxation process of your body. And so you're listening to that, right? So your mind is occupied in doing something, and yet, you know, the frequencies and the tones of the music are allowing your body to just relax on a physical level, and it's allowing your spirit to relax, and you're being guided through the whole process. And so for some people, it's a welcome, right, than just sitting silently, because that seems more difficult to begin with. And even if you are listening to it while you're falling asleep, that's still going, you know what I mean?
You're still absorbing it.
Yeah, still absorbing it and still absorbing those frequencies. And so that's okay to do too. Like, you know, put it on at night as you're falling asleep, or right before you fall asleep, because that's usually a relaxed time too, where your defenses are going to be down, and you're going to allow this in, right? Allow this into your mind, into your body, into your spirit, for the best healing. And certainly I have some shorter ones too, because I believe, I mean, even 5 minutes of concentrated time is great as well. Like, so it doesn't need to be, you know, if you don't have 20 minutes, you don't have 30 minutes, don't don't give up the practice. Especially as your life continues to grow and expand, it's super important to just connect within, you know?
I actually just took to watching like inspirational, motivational videos because I could stay awake through those. But I don't know.
That's great too. That's great too. And what happens, like what you were saying about, what can people do? It's like just by virtue of when you start feeling great energy and you start being around, high energy people, you're going to seek out high energy things, right? When you start feeding your body, I say when we start putting good stuff in our body, it changes our consciousness. We start all of a sudden thinking differently. We start treating ourselves differently. We start honoring things that maybe we didn't honor before as a natural byproduct of your body being cleaner, right? So whether you start through that door of physical health, your consciousness will be raised as you go down that road, right? Or maybe you start looking at the emotional stuff. Your consciousness will be raised. You'll probably start eating better, right? So there's this natural inclination that happens. And then people want to, read books that lift them up. We become these sponges that want to bring in all of this new high vibration energy and information. And so I would just recommend, keeping your mind occupied with high vibrational stuff. And not, maybe tuning into the news all the time or outlets that are, negative and really spreading fear and negativity, and being able to stay at the higher vibrational states as much as possible.
Yeah, no, it's kind of funny. It is like one side feeding onto the other, kind of back and forth. Because I'm really big on if you are going through cancer for yourself or a loved one, having a schedule for like everything, all your different supplements. But I even say, put going outside on there, or getting into the woods, or doing your exercise, or, there's just like all these different components to healing that you can't just, all of a sudden wake up one day and like, just get it all in every day. So I'm really big on, having a schedule on the fridge, but I found that you still have to be in the right state of mind to even look at the schedule and follow it. So,
right. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And the more it's like it catches fire, right? So the more you're doing it, the more you're bringing in, high vibration energy, the more you want it in your life, the more you make room for it, the more it feels good to you, and you start feeling better, right? Because nobody feels good when they're in the low frequency emotions. That's just not a feel good place. And again, they have their place in our life. It's just that some people get stuck there, right? It's like they've gotten stuck for decades on things that happened decades ago, and they're stuck in anger and stuck in fear and stuck in. So those are the things that they're experiencing most of the time. And if you're there, it's okay, because you can shift that really quickly. So I like to always give that message. Even if you've been stuck for 20 years, you can get unstuck really quickly. You can just start putting into your brain, into your body, into your psyche, high vibrational people, food, experiences, right? And you will shift right along with it. Like we're tuning forks, right? We vibrate with what we're around. So if we're around negative people, we're going to be picking up that energy, whether we try not to, we're not powerful enough to like thwart that if it's around us. And so it's really being mindful. And I love the schedule idea. It's really being mindful of continuing to add, right? You don't even have to worry about taking things away. Just start adding in the good things, right? Adding in the positive things, because the other things will fall away because they'll no longer be of resonance with who you are. Your energy will be shifting and changing. And as a natural byproduct of that, the things that are low vibration won't vibe with you anymore.
Yeah, no, it's, people continually make the observation, or whatever you want to call it, that, how do you get so much done during the day? And they see us doing all this stuff for Ryder, and they see us doing the podcast and all that, and it's like it really is amazing how much you can fit into one day, how much good stuff you can fit in one day, if that's what you're focused on, is packing a whole bunch of good stuff into the day. And so back to the schedule, it's like when you have your Epsom salt bath there on the schedule, right after the sauna, right after you get back from the hike in the woods, and and that's all the stuff that's important to you, and then that's what you do. It's just no time for TV and stuff, but it's not too big of a deal.
Well, the cool thing is that when you live in the land of little miracles, there's cooler stuff going on around you than could ever be found on TV. And my husband and I joke about that now. We're like, there's just beautiful things that happen around us all the time that are awe-inspiring, right? It's like, it feels like little miracles all the time. And so it to me, I used to watch TV quite a bit, like years ago, but I don't even miss it at all because it's like I live in the most incredible sitcom you've ever like seen in your life, you know? And so you really start to see the nuances and the beauty in life, and that becomes more exciting.
Land of Little Miracles. I like
Yeah.
that. What is, I saw on your site, it looks like you might, I don't know if this is your process. I thought I was maybe leading into that a couple questions back, but what's the whole anatomy of transformation deal?
Yeah, so that's it's a four-step process, and it's something that after I had skin cancer and I went through the healing of that and stuff, I went through a major life transformation that actually had me start my business, right? So I went on my own healing journey from the skin cancer, but I went through just like where the rug gets pulled out from underneath you in almost every area of my life simultaneously. It was almost like a bit of an ego death to some degree, and our ego never really dies. But the way I was living my life was not in alignment with who I really was, and I feel like I got taught a huge lesson, right, by having everything that I thought was self-identifying with, like taken from me, so that I had to sit with like, who am I? You know what I mean? Without the career that I had, without the home that I was living in, without you know what I mean? All the bells and whistles that I had around me in my life, I was kind of left to really evaluate like, what is my truth? And in that process, which was not an easy process, but I was then shown that I was going through it because this is the process that I'll help other people through when they have, when they hit a point in their life where maybe their career isn't the right career for them anymore, or maybe they've lost a loved one, or all of these things are catalysts that send us into transformation, or they have a diagnosis, right? There's always a catalyst. And then we go through what I call the anatomy of transformation, which is like going through a tunnel. And it starts with truth, right? And this is looking at the truth of who we are, maybe the truth of the relationship we're in, if we're not in denial of that, the truth of our life, of our past, the way we're treating ourselves. We as human beings can elude ourselves really easily and tell ourselves stories to make ourselves feel better. And yet we're not at the truth. And I always say that the truth is the most powerful healer, and it will set you free really in life. But first, it might really like make you mad, right? It might really frustrate you to get to the truth, because oftentimes when we connect to the truth, it means that change is around the corner, right? Something might need to shift in your life, and we're afraid of that in general. But so it's this process I take people through where they connect to the truth, they release whatever is not in truth of their life. So this can be the beliefs and the patterns and the limitations, the things that we tell ourselves that aren't real. It can even be for some people, certain people in their life that are toxic or are not treating them well. It can be a lot of different things for people. And it's like a purging of this old energy. And when that old energy leaves, it leaves what I call a gap, right? It's an opening where the new can be created. And it's scary for people sometimes to feel that opening, right? Like, oh gosh, well, if I'm not all these things that I thought I was, then who am I? Right? And it's the most beautiful moment in anyone's life if they know that they're going through it, and they understand that you're not going to be stuck there forever, that it's just a part of the process. It's kind of like going through the lower half of the tunnel. And then I teach people how to create. So how to use your thoughts, your feelings, like the energy that you are, to really create what is in truth for you, like who you came here to be and what your purpose is. And so we start building back this life that's in truth. And the fourth pillar is called align, which is what you're experiencing right now, is where you start aligning yourself with people, right? With a new tribe of people, that are at a different energy frequency than where you might have lived before, right? Because through this process, anatomy of transformation, we're shifting our energy. Right. And there's an alchemical like transformation that happens inside in who we're being in the world, right? Like who I know myself to be versus who I knew myself to be before is different. And it's so powerful for people to get into alignment with who they really are, because so many people are living out of alignment in so many areas of life. And it's like trying to swim upstream, right? It's like trying to be somebody that you think you need to be, but you're not. And it wastes a lot of energy and a lot of life force. And so when we live in alignment, it's like floating on a river, right? It's not difficult. It's like doing what we love to do and being compensated for that, being who we are in the world and being loved for that. It's easy. It's like how we are meant to be living, and yet so many of us are not. And so I just help people through that transformation. And it's really funny because people find me and seek me out when they've had this catalyst happen, and it's almost like they go, I don't know why, I'm just supposed to talk to you. I know, I know you can help me through this. And so there's a connection a lot of times with my clients that I work with one-on-one, where they just feel drawn to the work they do, because I really see myself as I hold people's hand through that tunnel, and I show them that everything's going to be all right, and exactly every step that they're going to go through, and the beauty that's on the other side of it. It's always worth it. Nobody gets to the other side and looks back and goes, oh, why did I do that? Everybody looks back and goes, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
So now I'm glad I asked you about that. And back in Release, you brought up, letting go of toxic people. Do you have any, I don't know if advice is the right word, but just anything to say on that matter to people that maybe know that that's something they need to do, but it's not necessarily just one of your random college buddies? It's maybe a family member or your lifelong best friend or something like that. I still get mad when I think about a couple people that, that I wish had acted differently along my journey and that sort of thing. And we work with, we have our own program working with mostly cancer parents, parents of children going through cancer. And that's the same thing. They know that to be there for their kid, they need to release all of those bad people and just be 100% there for their kid. But it's not, situationally or circumstantially or just that really, really, really strong connection of a lifelong thing. It's not always easy. So I don't know. Do you have any basic 101 type pointers for people?
Yeah. I actually have a process that I help people on how to do that, right? Because really what's happening when we have toxic people in our life and we want to grow, right? We are going through a experience in our life where we are growing, right? Because the only time that we really notice that the people are toxic is when we're on a pattern of growth and they're not, right? So we're going somewhere and they're either resisting that, or they're putting it down, or they're not coming along for the ride, or they're not adjusting their behavior. And we suddenly become really present to that, right? Like, I don't like to be around this anymore. And that's really a gap in frequency. You're changing your frequency, they're not, right? Maybe you were at a frequency with them or dancing somewhere in that, around that frequency at some point in your life, and now you're not. And so there's a really particular way that I teach people how to communicate that, right, to people because what happens is a lot of sabotage goes on for people when they see people in their life growing and expanding and good things happening to them. It triggers something in a lot of people that has them want you to be who they know you to be, right? They're very threatened. People are very threatened when other people are growing. And so by nature of that, they want to do things to cut you off at the knees a little bit so that you come right back to where they're comfortable with you. Right? If you've ever noticed that, they'll say something, it'll be like a passive aggressive comment, or they'll stop talking to you, or they'll do something that makes you go, ooh, that doesn't feel good. And we so don't like to feel out of alignment with the people in our life that we will actually lower our frequency just to make that other person feel comfortable, right? Because we will halt our own growth so that we can reconnect with that person. And so I teach people not to do that, right? And that we have to hold our frequency. And I teach them a very specific conversation about how to invite people up to where you're growing, right? And give them that opportunity. And if not, to with love, just allow that energy to be where it's at, right? Just allowing it, not needing to fix it, not needing to make it better. Because as we know with energy, when we are at the same frequency with someone, we will be attracted. We will feel attracted to them. Like, gosh, I really want to call them. I want to talk to them, right? When we start to fall out of alignment with someone, it almost feels like, yeah, I love them, but I don't know. I don't want to hang around them right now. Or I feel like I'm busy and I don't really have time to talk, right? We will naturally allow ourselves to have some distance with that person. And it doesn't need to be an argument. It doesn't need to be dramatic. It's just allowing that distance to be, because that distance is the divide in where your energy is at and where the other person's energy is at. And so, yeah, there's some powerful work around that, because that's one of the things that really holds people back from growing the most, is that it feels icky to feel like you're not resonating with the people that you used to resonate with at a very energetic level, right? And those people really want you to come back down to where they're comfortable with you. And, you know, parents, relative, anybody. I mean, it's heartbreaking sometimes how close the people are in your life, and you think they love you the most. And those people will do the most passive aggressive, strange things to get you, because they need you, right? They need you to be who they want you to be. And so there's a lot of powerful work around that, and support in doing that.
It's tough, yeah, but
yeah,
very necessary. Or even I like the way you put it though, and inviting them to, you know, come up to your level too.
Yeah,
yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I was just listening to the first, I think it was the first episode of your podcast, and just you talking about where your where the term the soul frequency came from, and kind of the I don't know, explanation behind that. I thought that might be a neat way to start to wrap it up.
Yeah. So because I experience people as energy, and because I'm seeing their energetic system, and I kind of, you know, again, we don't always see that, right? So everybody doesn't see that in everybody else. They certainly feel it, but they don't see it. But I really started to see that there was a frequency that everyone could live at that is like the best version of them, right? If they were to take all those 40 wool blankets off their back, and they were to shine their light as bright as possible in the world, and they were to really line up with their purpose, like this is who they would be and this is how they'd be living. And to me, that's each individual soul frequency, right? That's the energy that you came here when you were born onto this planet to be, before stuff happened to you, right? And life had its toll on you. And so we can reclaim that, right? We are meant to reclaim that. So whatever we've gone through in our life, a lot of times means that it's just part of the gift that we're going to give to other people, right? We have an understanding of it. Like when I was very young, I struggled with food, which was emotional based from when my parents got divorced. So I ended up helping people, right? With food and nutrition and weight. So I have a unique understanding of what that is, right? I have a unique ability to speak to what it's like to struggle with that, right? That had I not had that life experience, I wouldn't be able to do. And so we're given these hardships or these things that we go through. We come to find out through the tunnel of transformation that they are our gifts. They are the places where we are most compassionate for other people. You guys are able to coach other parents that have children that have been diagnosed with cancer, and you can speak to that like nobody else can, right? And the journey that you guys have been on, you have so much value to bring in that area because you've lived it, right? You can speak to all the different levels, the emotional level and the physical and all the things that happen, you know, in that diagnosis. And so that makes you equipped, right? That's your college and your master's degree and your PhD and your doctorate, right? In human compassion for a life experience. And we all have that, right? And so when we align with that soul frequency, that highest version of ourself, it is that land of little miracles. It is where we see, oh gosh, this is why I went through all of this, to come to this moment, to become this person, and to share this powerfully with the world. And so that's really the intention of my podcast. And there's a book of the same title that will come out next year that really dives deep into this anatomy of transformation, how I came to it in my own life, how I was given it, basically. I feel like it was a gift to me, and how I was taught how to help other people through their life journey.
That's really neat. That's really neat. And it's 3 years ago. There was not absolutely, but pretty much no information on the internet of, you know, designed for people going through childhood cancer that wanted to approach it from an integrative place. And now at least there's us. So yeah, that's cool.
So great. Thank you for doing that work and for what you guys give. I mean, it's so from the heart. It's so powerful. And you guys have, you know, learned so much information that it must feel amazing to be able to pass it on and have that impact on other people's lives. And I just truly value that and honor that.
It's been neat. So there's two questions I always wrap up with, and I warn about 50% of the people. I try to let everyone know, but you're one of the lucky ones that didn't get warned, but I'm sure you'll do just great. If you had to boil everything you knew down into 3 golden rules, and those golden rules would be on how to stay healthy and disease-free or become healthy and disease-free, and it's just everything you know about everything. What would those rules be?
The first would be find the courage to seek out the truth, to always be looking inside at, what's true for me. And you need a whole lot of courage to communicate that sometimes. But I feel that people that can tell the truth really are able to heal faster, and they're able to feel connected to who they really are. And the second would be be courageous in releasing what no longer fits your life. We're always growing and expanding, and just because something worked for you 10 years ago, doesn't mean it's of resonance now. And so it takes courage to release some things. It's, we're talking about toxic people. I mean, it takes courage, but there's always, when you release something, there's always something new that comes in, right? A new relationship or a new experience. And so it's interesting that we don't get shown the new before we close the door on the old. And that's the part that takes courage, right? And faith and trust, is being willing to close the door and know that something new will show up. And I would say the last is to really start to bring the energy from your head down to your heart. We live so much in our minds, right? And we're so praised for our minds these days. And really, our heart is the most powerful energy center of our body. It's the first thing to develop. It has the most powerful energetic, basically realm outside of our body. And when we can take some of that energy of always thinking, and bring it into our heart space, this is where truth lies, right? This is where our intuition lies. This is where we can make decisions based on our own GPS. And so if we can quiet our mind and bring some of that energy down to our heart and let that intuition lead the way, and then let your brain support the intuition, right? That's the way it's meant to be. It's gotten backwards, but it's meant that we feel into life, right, with our intuition, and then we allow our brain to support what we feel into. And so those key things will really shift your energy frequency and how you live your life.
Very cool. Those were good ones on the spot. And lastly, along those lines, if you just have any sort of final thought or sentiment for anyone going through cancer right now, for themselves or a loved one, to take us out, that'd be nice too.
Yeah. I'm just a big proponent of realizing that every choice you make, you either make from love or fear. And fear is that low vibration energy, and love is that high vibration energy. And so always coming at life or to life or showing up to anything, any choice from a place of love, that if we choose from that high vibration place of love, that's the whole reason why we're here. That's why we're born, is to reconnect to that ultimate love. And the more choices we can make from that, the more we can heal. And we can't have love and fear at the same time. So it's always continuing to choose love and continuing to, listen to your heart and to choose those things you like, instead of being fearful of what's going to happen or how it's going to happen, because love really is the most powerful healing energy.
Very good. Shauna Ekdahl, this was a nice break indeed. Do you want to let everyone know where they can follow all things Shauna Ekdahl? Where would you point them?
Yes, to the Shauna Ekdahl Hub, which can be found at SHANA, Shauna, and Ekdahl, EKEDAL.com. So they can find, there's a free gift on the homepage that talks about how to shift your energy and how to start that process. And so that's a great place to start for people.
Very cool. Shauna, thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. It was a really fun conversation.
Sure was. Bye, Shauna.
Bye.
Did that give you enough to think about? Whether you want to think about this in terms of the science proving the power of prayer, or in more esoteric terms, there's certainly no denying that there's something to all of this. And if we're trying to give ourselves every edge in healing disease or just preventing it and living a great life for that matter, I really think we ignore the subject matter at our own peril. I'm thinking more along these lines myself these days, and I really hope all of you are too. I'm also quite sure you know at least one person who could really benefit from hearing this episode. Please share it with them. You never know how a small act like that can completely alter the course of someone's life for the better. And you can do that from mykidcurescancer.com/Shana, SHANA -Ekedal, EKEDAL. And again, that's where you can find our highlight article along with our thoughts on how all of this applies to childhood cancer and all links to all resources mentioned in the episode, including Shauna's free meditation, which she was kind enough to offer us. I listened to it last night and can honestly say it's the first time in a few years that I would describe my sleep as peaceful. And I woke up feeling great, and that is a big deal. If you yourself got value out of this episode and have been getting value out of many of our other episodes, consider vibrating to the frequency of kicking in a few bucks a month on our Patreon account to keep all of this going, as it certainly is not free in time or treasure to produce. You can find out how to be a part of the solution at mykidcurescancer.com/crowd sponsor, which is all one word. Lastly, if you've got a little superhero and want to do everything you can to stack the deck in their favor, we're making some really cool upgrades to the coaching program that so many parents have gotten so much out of already. We'd love to tell you more about it in a free 15-minute consultation that you can sign up for at mykidcurescancer.com/coaching. Lord willing, we'll see you next week with the man behind the legendary Truth About Cancer documentary series that has meant so much to so many, including us, Ty Bollinger himself, where we will be talking about what he would do himself if, God forbid, he ever needed to reverse a case of cancer. Music was provided by the Fat Rat and Tasty Network, and all editing was done by the birthday girl herself, Teddy Sternagel. Happy birthday, babe. That's all for me. This is Ryan Sternagel signing out for now. God bless, Godspeed, and if you are going through cancer, just keep going.